Picture this, one of the most groundbreaking science fiction films ever made, built on a foundation of legal chaos, near-fatal accidents, and creative disasters that could have buried it before a single frame reached theaters. That's the untold story of War of the Worlds, a production so chaotic, it makes modern Hollywood meltdowns look like minor inconveniences. Behind those iconic Martian war machines and apocalyptic cityscapes lies a tale of exploding budgets, censorship battles, melting makeup, and desperate innovation born from pure necessity. This wasn't just an adaptation of H.G. Wells's classic novel. It was a high-stakes gamble where every decision could mean triumph or catastrophe. So buckle up, because these 16 facts reveal how perfection emerged from absolute pandemonium. Number 1. Paramount started filming without the rights. Most studios secure legal ownership before spending millions on production. Paramount did the opposite. They assumed their 1925 agreement with the H.G. Wells estate covered everything. It didn't. That original contract only authorized a silent film adaptation. By the early 50s, sound pictures dominated cinema, which meant every frame Paramount shot was technically unauthorized. Imagine the panic when lawyers discovered this mid-production. Cameras rolling, actors in costume, sets constructed, and suddenly the entire project existed in legal limbo. The studio scrambled to negotiate a new deal with the Wells estate while filming continued. One of cinema's most influential science fiction epics began its existence on profoundly shaky, almost criminal legal ground. The irony cuts deep. A story about invasion started as an invasion of intellectual property rights. Number 2. The Martian war machines were almost flying saucers. Those haunting manta ray-shaped war machines gliding through destruction are now iconic. But they weren't the original vision. Initially, Paramount wanted classic flying saucers, the standard UFO design plastered across every pulp magazine cover. The problem? By the early 50s, UFO hysteria saturated American culture. News reports, conspiracy theories, tabloid sensationalism. Audiences were drowning in stories about little green men and flying discs. The creative team feared their film would vanish into the noise, dismissed as another cheap alien exploitation flick, so they abandoned convention entirely. Special effects master Al Nozaki engineered the sleek, curved war machines we recognize today. Part manta ray, part cobra, with sinister necks extending deadly heat rays. That bold decision gave the film a visual identity that remains alien and unsettling decades later. Sometimes the best creative choices come from rejecting what everyone expects. Number 3. Special effects were a nightmare. The war machines looked magnificent on paper. Bringing them to life nearly destroyed the crew's sanity. The models were suspended by visible wires that reflected studio lights relentlessly. No matter how technicians adjusted angles or repositioned lamps, those wires ruined take after take, glinting like metallic spiderwebs across the frame. The solution bordered on absurd. Smear the wires with baby oil, then blast them with arc lights powerful enough to make the reflections vanish on film. It worked, barely. Every battle sequence became a high-stakes experiment where the effects team invented techniques in real time, turning technical limitations into reluctant innovation. What audiences saw as seamless alien menace was actually held together by improvisation, desperation, and industrial-grade infant skincare products. Number 4. The actors were nearly cooked alive. The Martians weren't the only ones bringing lethal heat to this production. The set itself transformed into an oven. To simulate the burning devastation caused by alien weapons, the crew deployed massive carbon arc lamps, some of the most intense lighting equipment available in the 50s. These industrial monsters blasted temperatures well past 130 degrees Fahrenheit. Actors stood beneath those beams in heavy period costumes, while cameras rolled endlessly. The results were predictable and horrifying. Extras collapsed from heat exhaustion. Makeup literally melted off faces mid-scene. Crew members rotated in shifts just to prevent mass casualties. One cameraman described it as standing directly in front of the sun. The bitter irony? The Martians never harmed a single performer. It was the movie magic itself. Number 5. Censorship almost killed the violence. The 1950s weren't kind to films pushing boundaries. When Paramount submitted War of the Worlds to censorship boards, officials nearly had collective heart attacks. Exploding cities, incinerated bodies, panicked crowds fleeing certain doom, far too intense for family audiences of that conservative era. Some censors demanded the studio drastically tone down the carnage, especially sequences showing civilians vaporized by Martian heat rays. Paramount fought back aggressively, arguing that sanitizing the destruction would gut the film's entire purpose. This wasn't a polite alien encounter. It was the apocalypse. Eventually, a few shots were trimmed to appease the censors, but the film retained its terrifying core. Critics later praised it as one of the most viscerally intense science fiction films of its generation. The battle with censorship nearly neutered the vision, but compromise preserved just enough nightmare fuel. Number 6. Alien blood wasn't alien at all when the production needed Martian blood. They skipped futuristic labs entirely. They visited the local butcher. That otherworldly fluid splattered across the screen was nothing more than dyed animal organs and genuine blood sourced straight from slaughterhouses. The effects team mixed in green coloring for that alien aesthetic, then carefully lit the grotesque mixture so it would glisten and ooze convincingly on camera. Audiences recoiled in horror at what they assumed was advanced special effects wizardry. If they'd known it was basically butcher shop leftovers repurposed for cinema, the reaction might have shifted from science fiction shock to visceral disgust. Sometimes the most convincing alien elements come from disturbingly terrestrial sources. The Martians bled grocery store inventory. Number 7. The sound of the Martians came from animals. The filmmakers wanted Martian vocalizations that would haunt audiences long after the credits rolled. Something inhuman, unsettling, unforgettable. But in 1953, digital effects and synthesizers didn't exist. The sound team had to improvise with whatever materials they could scavenge. They layered together animal cries, scraping metal, and electronically distorted recordings until they created that eerie, high-pitched shriek that became the Martian voice. Rumors suggest they used distorted recordings of a tortured pig to achieve the most unsettling tones. The result was a sound so alien and unnatural that audiences physically squirmed in their seats. It wasn't just audio design, it was psychological warfare, and it worked brilliantly. Number 8. The heat ray sound was discovered by accident. The Martian heat ray needed a sonic signature unlike anything on Earth. Deadly, alien, permanently memorable, but nobody could agree on what death by laser should actually sound like. The sound team experimented with whooshes, pops, explosions. Everything felt too familiar, too ordinary. Then luck intervened. An engineer accidentally struck an electric guitar string with a metal object, then played the recording backward through an echo chamber. Add electronic distortion, and suddenly they had perfection. That piercing, otherworldly zap audiences would never forget. It wasn't just a sound effect, it became a sonic trademark of alien destruction. Decades later, it remains one of the most recognizable audio cues in science fiction history. Sometimes genius emerges from happy accidents. Number 9. Actors clashed behind the scenes. On screen, humanity united against invasion. Off-screen, tensions simmered. The main cast didn't always harmonize, and conflicts bubbled beneath the surface during grueling shoots. Anne Robinson, who portrayed Sylvia, later admitted struggling with co-star Gene Barry's intensity. Barry was obsessively meticulous, sometimes excessively so, and it slowed production to frustrating crawls. Crew members whispered about sharp comments traded between takes, though both actors maintained professionalism once cameras rolled. It wasn't a full-blown Hollywood feud, but it added unnecessary friction to an already stressful production. The irony? Their on-screen chemistry convinced audiences they were desperately in love while civilization crumbled. Acting, indeed. Number 10. Director Byron Haskin. Nearly broke down guiding War of the Worlds pushed Byron Haskin to his absolute limit. He'd been a respected effects artist before transitioning to directing, but this production tested him beyond anything previous. Every single day delivered fresh disasters. Wires appearing on film, censors threatening cuts, actors fainting under brutal heat lamps, studio executives demanding faster progress. Haskin was trapped between creative ambition and constant crisis management. Insiders claimed he nearly abandoned the project entirely, exhausted by relentless pressure. Somehow he persevered, keeping production on track even when total collapse seemed inevitable. By the time filming wrapped, Haskin looked less like someone who directed an alien invasion and more like someone who survived one. The toll was visible. The dedication was undeniable. Number 11. A set accident nearly turned deadly. Big-budget science fiction effects in the 50s meant substantial risks. During one climactic sequence, rigged explosions were timed to detonate just after actors cleared the danger zone. Precision was essential, but something failed catastrophically. One charge detonated early, sending a blast of heat and debris horrifyingly close to the cast. Crew members dove for cover. A cameraman swore he felt his eyebrows singe off. For several terrifying seconds, everyone believed they'd just witnessed a fatal accident. Miraculously, nobody suffered serious injuries, but the scare rattled the entire production. From that moment forward, explosions were triple-checked and rehearsed with military precision. The line between spectacular cinema and actual tragedy proved disturbingly thin. Number 12. The first Martian designs were laughable. Everyone remembers the Martians as slimy, bioluminescent creatures that looked genuinely alien. But the early concept designs, absolutely ridiculous. Initial sketches depicted them as little more than oversized, bug-eyed puppets with floppy, cartoonish limbs. When prototypes were tested on set, the crew couldn't contain their laughter. Instead of terrifying, they resembled children's toys. The effect obliterated any sense of menace instantly. Realizing disaster loomed, the design team scrapped everything and started from scratch. They eventually created the more sinister, clawed creatures seen in the final cut. Eerie enough to disturb audiences, yet mysterious enough to keep most horror hidden in shadows. It was a last-minute save that transformed embarrassment into nightmare fuel. Sometimes you have to fail spectacularly before discovering what actually works. Number 13. The wires wouldn't stay hidden. The Martian war machines were meant to glide through the air like unstoppable apex predators. In reality, they dangled from visible wires, and those wires became the crew's recurring nightmare. No matter how they positioned lighting or adjusted camera angles, the wires caught studio lights persistently. In pristine 1953 Technicolor prints, most audiences remained blissfully unaware. But as the film aged and color faded over decades, those wires became increasingly obvious. By the time television reruns hit in the 70s and 80s, fans laughed at floating toys on strings instead of cowering in terror. The problem wasn't fully resolved until the 2018 4K restoration, when technicians returned to original 3-strip negatives, adjusted contrast, and digitally erased reflections. Finally, the machines looked terrifying again. The aliens didn't just invade Earth, they accidentally exposed Hollywood's trickiest strings. Number 14. The budget was swallowed by special effects. War of the Worlds carried a production budget of approximately $2 million, substantial money for 1953. But here's the shocking reality. More than half that amount, around 1.3 to 1.4 million, vanished straight into special effects. Miniature cities had to be constructed and obliterated. Martian war machines required complex rigging and lighting. Explosions demanded split-second timing. Alien fluids needed laboratory preparation. It was a relentless financial drain. For context, most major studio dramas cost less than $1 million total, meaning this science fiction spectacle consumed more on effects alone than entire films budgeted for everything combined. The gamble paid off spectacularly. The Oscar-winning visuals transformed a pulp invasion story into a landmark of cinematic achievement, but it left Paramount executives sweating profusely, knowing one significant delay or failed shot could incinerate that mountain of cash. Number 15. The UK thought it was too scary. When War of the Worlds crossed the Atlantic, British censors weren't impressed. They were horrified. Exploding cities, panicked masses, bodies reduced to ash. For conservative 1953 audiences, it was considered excessively intense. The film received an X certificate, which at that time restricted viewing to adults only. Imagine that. A science fiction adventure treated like hardcore horror. Local councils protested, arguing the rating was unfairly harsh, but the ruling remained firm, and for years, younger British audiences were barred from viewing it. Only later, after its reputation as a science fiction masterpiece solidified, did the rating relax. But in its era, War of the Worlds was literally deemed too frightening for children. The film that scared a generation also scared the censors themselves. Number 16. The Martian machines lived on, then melted down. Those copper-green war machines are unforgettable, but their story didn't conclude with the credits. Byron Haskin, the director, later recycled the exact same designs in his 1964 film Robinson Crusoe on Mars. Watch closely, and the alien ships look suspiciously familiar, because they literally were repurposed from War of the Worlds. But the real tragedy? Only a handful of original models survived. Several copper-constructed machines were reportedly melted down for scrap metal in the years following production. Hollywood treated them like disposable junk instead of preserving them as cinematic history. Today, collectors would pay fortunes to own one. Most are gone forever. It's a strange, melancholy fate. Iconic Martian invaders reduced to scrap while their legend lived eternally in science fiction cinema. From filming an entire movie on questionable legal grounds, to roasting actors under blistering heat lamps, to Martians that initially resembled ridiculous puppets, War of the Worlds was absolute chaos from conception to completion. And yet, from all those disasters, stress fractures, and desperate last-minute saves, emerged one of the most influential science fiction films ever created. It didn't just terrify audiences in the 1950s, it established the blueprint for every alien invasion blockbuster that followed. Which fact shocked you most? The butcher shop alien blood? The illegal filming? Those laughable early Martian designs? Share your thoughts? And don't forget to subscribe for more untold stories from behind the movies you thought you knew.